right, guys, you're on the mic with Mr. Cage Lawyer, Mr. Andrew Goldberg. Cage is your portfolio manager of the Collectable Fractional report before opening bell. And we've got an awesome episode here for you guys in the first weekend of October. Cage, how we doing, my friend?
I mean, we're doing good. We are doing good. We're doing good.
Cage is worried about the Tom Brady card. I'll tell you guys right off the bat, we own that card. And Cage is a numbers guy. Cage is a numbers guy so much so that if his follower count on Instagram falls, he's spending the evenings Googling, how could this be?
Not falls, but just when I know like 40 people follow me and it just doesn't show up. It's weird. Because this weekend I've added like 117 followers. So that's good.
So what do you make of this?
Yeah.
Why is the Brady card down? Is it almost 50%?
It depends. When are you measuring from? The all-time high of last year? Because then almost everything is down 50%.
I only measure from all-time highs, Cage. You know that.
Okay. Well, yeah. I mean, So guys, you can take a look. I have a video on my IG page. I tried to do one of these like remix kind of things. I'm not with it, but you could see. And there is some data in it. This past week, weird on a Friday night auction ending. That's always odd in and of itself. I mean, and Heritage has these multi-day auctions where it ends on Thursday and then Friday. And some cards end at some days. It's a little weird. But anyway, Friday night they had an auction end, 95 out of 100, the championship ticket, the one that the Brady on the platform here. The last sale actually went for closer to 1.2, if memory serves, and that was when we actually picked up ours at like 1.1 valuation. That's about where it's trading at now on Collectable. And anyway, this one, number 95 out of 100, sold for $855,000 approximately. I think it was the sale price this past weekend. And what was interesting, noteworthy, whatever you want to call it, is the same exact one, the same serial number, 95 out of 100, sold in April of last year, right up in the the end of that first quarter high with Golden, and that sold for approximately 1.7. So yeah, it's 50% of the price it was in April of last year. There are other sales of the same card. It's a serial number out of 100. So the same card out of 100 has sold anywhere in that million and change to two and change, low twos at its high point last year. And what's also noteworthy, guys, in that video, take a look. You can see the card ladder data, and it shows all the sales. Even on Collectible site, it shows the sales. Even though it's out of 100. The card has sold many, many times in the last year and a half. Not every month per se, but we talked about this. That card has sold a bunch of times recently, this year alone. So, even though something is rare or scarce, when it comes to market, as often as that particular card has come to market, you sometimes see, a price correction like this, a price drop like this. So that's, it's worth it.
There was news, right? Retirement, unretirement is.
I mean, he hasn't looked that good either. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
His team hasn't looked that good. Although you would like to think that somebody like him with, what does he have, 7 championships? I mean, you'd like to think that it's the downside is minimal, and the upside probably also minimal, but that's not what we're seeing.
Over the long term, yes, but short term, when there's not uncertainty, but like that change, I think sometimes it's better to just swan song and leave than swan song, come back and kind of play in limbo.
Well, we're recording this, and it is, it's before he plays Mahomes. This is the night game Sunday night. By the time most of you guys are listening to this, that game may be done. And if Brady has an all-out performance with his weapons back and he looks great, that might actually offset, the pricing on this, perhaps. So, maybe people are like, oh, wow, whoever bought it last week got a bargain because, they probably thought maybe he was going to lose to Mahomes and not make the playoffs and blah, blah, blah. So
I'm going to put you on the spot, and then we'll get into the data here.
I like being on the spot. Shoot.
So we all know this. So we all know any market is a combination of long-term fundamentals and short-term hype, emotion, psychology. So I'm going to share a chart, and I'd like for you to analyze where do you think we are in this chart. So this is like the psychology of the market cycle. You can apply this to cards, stocks, crypto. So we're obviously past this euphoria and the thrill stage, which is the top of the chart. But then it goes complacency, anxiety, denial, panic, anger, depression, disbelief. And from disbelief, you move to hope. And that's where optimism, belief, thrill, euphoria comes. So it's a cycle. Where do you think we are on this cycle, Cage?
Somewhere between anxiety and denial. I don't think we've gotten to panic just yet.
The chart puts a lot of things in perspective because when you look at that chart, you're like, we're in the anxiety denial stage. That's exactly what I said too.
Yeah, there's definitely anxiety. There's definitely a whole bunch of denial.
And you could spend a few hours on Instagram and get to that same conclusion. Is that fair?
I would say a few minutes. Yeah, I would say a few minutes on Instagram and get to the same conclusion. But I mean, Instagram is funny, man. It's either we're gonna, Fanatics is coming and we're gonna add 10 times as many people, just like when Coinbase came into the NFT space and added 1 million new Coinbase wallets. I mean, 17 total people. But or you can find people who are saying buy those $1,000 Prism boxes. They're so cheap. They're cheaper than cheap. The hobby is in great hands. Or you find people who are like everything's a pumpy dumpy, hanky panky.
The $1,000 boxes is a form of denial. It's like, hey, I remember when I could sell these out. I can't sell these out anymore. I need to do something. No, but and guys, I hope you don't think that we have all the answers. I'll actually speak for myself. I hope you guys don't think that I have all the answers.
I mean, everything I've put our money in is down. So clearly I don't have the answers.
But hopefully together with our community, we can find the answers a little bit faster. We could find them together. We could get more clarity.
Here's a great question for you because you have a chart, right?
Yes.
That chart, if you believe in that chart, even if we're at the panic, anxiety, disbelief, whatever level, the chart cycles its way back up eventually. So I guess my thing is we don't have the answers. When is the test due? There's the question, right? So you may not have the answers if the test is due this week or this month, but the fractional space might not be the place for you to be sitting and taking a test if you want to hand it in the next month or this year. This may be one of those long-term tests. I mean, you may have the answers, but the answers might be for a test you're handing in 2024 or 2025.
Hey, teacher, did you purposely give these students really hard first test so that they would study much harder for the second, third, and fourth test?
That's my daughter's science teacher. She totally did.
Now Cage is using test analogies for you.
100%. No, you said we don't have the answers, so I used the test for you. I mean, if we don't have the answers, it's all about a test. It depends on, we may have the answers. Just the fractional space. One of the things that I've learned through the exercise we've been on the last couple of months is it is not a place for you to come in and look to put money in on a Monday and exit on a Friday or the following Monday. The liquidity is not there yet. The ability to kind of day trade with it is not there yet. It is not the stock market. It is not penny stocks. Even when you're putting the money into items that are trading that weekend or there's going to be a comp, not necessarily enough volume, on any of those items for it to move for you to be able to do that. But I think if you identify items that have value and you're willing to sit for a longer term in those items, I think it is a place where you might be able to it might be the only place you're able to find some of these items. So
I'll popcorn to you here, but guys, one other thing to think about. I always want to align my incentives with other people. And it would be naive for people out there listening to the show not to realize that there are certain assets where there's a collector community that protects the floor. Okay? And that happens in stocks, in NFTs, and in cards. And I believe those types of assets are Jordan, PSA 10 Fleer, the LeBron Exquisite. Those are cards, in my opinion, where my incentives align with just a very passionate, rabid fan base where I would be more comfortable holding through a difficult period like that than otherwise. And then the other angle is very iconic vintage cards, right? Because sure, things fall, but if a card doesn't sell very often or once a year, thinking like a Ty Cobb, for example, TO206, right?
Mm-hmm.
I feel very safe there. Sure, I know my money might not go up, I might not appreciate, but I also know that this item is going to very rarely sell, and it's not going to be as hit by a market as some other assets. So those are two type of frameworks more than specificities that I'm thinking about as kind of going through this next, what I think will be about a 12 to 18 month type of panic to correction. And you made a great point about the whole midterms, regardless of what side of the aisle you're on, they always struggle with uncertainty. And we're sort of going into that period economically in America in the next 12 months.
Yep.
So that's kind of how I'm thinking about it from just like a more global standpoint. The light's killing me.
The light, bright light. You're like Gizmo. You're like Gizmo.
Boom.
And I mean, listen, in addition to what you're saying, the only other thing that I'll kind of piggyback on, and then we'll get to the stats on it, is in addition to those things that people defend, normally you can defend something that's got more of a track record. So that Michael Jordan card has a track record. You know, the 86 clear. We'll talk about that in a second, just because it's down this week. But it has a track record of sales through ups, through downs. It has peaks, it has valleys. Like, I mean, you can search me out on YouTube before we even had a podcast. I think I went on Slam Stocks show to talk about Jordans and talked about the star, talked about the, you know, how the Jordan was 25, and then it was and you can get as many of them as you wanted. Then it was 40, and then it came down a little bit. Then it was 100, and it came down a little bit. Then it was, you know, then it was 200, and just flew to 500 and down a little bit. And you know, you can track it, you can see. Part of, you know, the uncertainty that you talk about and the people not coming to defend are also the fact that we saw in this last 2-year run-up, different markets emerge within the hobby.
Yep.
One of them I'm talking about like what I would call fringe stuff. So we've talked about tennis, we've talked about, you know, F1, Marvel, we talk about all those things. Boxing cards, right? And I'm not talking about Ali here, but boxing cards. If you can, do me a favor, pull up. I know I'm kind of doing this out of left field, but just Tyson, right? So the Tyson that's on Collectable, it is the Tyson rookie basket, the Super Sport rookie basket BGS times 2 BGS 9s. And I mean, this one, it's 2 of them BGS 9s. They were, I think it IPO'd at $10 and 5,650 total shares, so like 56,000.
See my screen, Cage?
Yep. Yeah, that's it. That's the one. So this is now something that was a $10 IPO, 56,000 market cap, and it's now from $10 down to $2.16, a market cap just over $12,000 on this. It is one that was, I believe, IPO'd during the peak, you know, call it a frenzy of the market where people were looking for these items. People were, you know, talking about, oh, look, Mike Tyson doesn't have a lot of stuff. More of these cards have come out, additional grades. The pop report has grown. Also, the uncertainty, you know, this does not have a track record. You can't go back and look at, you know, 1 million sales of this, you know, Mike Tyson card, which is why you see the chart doing what it's doing. These are the kind of items that I am more cautious of when you have the uncertain type of market that you are bringing up. Not just uncertainty, you know, of players or specific cards, but, you know, this last boom cycle branched our hobby out into a lot of different, you know, verticals within cards, right? A lot of different sports. I have, you know, outside of, let's call it the main 4, right? When I collected as a kid, there was a product called 4 Sport, and it was, you know, football, basketball, baseball, hockey. Those were the 4 sports. You know, soccer. It wasn't a huge collectible, right? Tennis, F1, boxing, UFC, all this stuff. It's all, you know, seen it's come up here in the last couple of years, and there's not data, there's not a support system. There's probably not as many collectors who have been in this for a long time to come in and defend the pricing on these things.
And here's the key, guys. That doesn't mean they will fail, but
Correct.
They will have to prove that they could stand the test of time. One thing that Cage always said to me when we would get into these heated, passionate phone arguments, it's like, Cage, don't you just want to be an NFT collector? He said, stop saying collector. What the F is a collector in NFTs? They've only rode a trend up. They haven't rode a trend down. So we don't know which of these will be able to stand the test of time.
Correct. Yeah, and I mean, but listen, even if you're hard football, so you know, there are a lot of comps on this, and I'd have to look up, you know, some of the comparables. But you know, the other side of the equation, while everybody is rushing now to buy young quarterbacks and buy Mac Jones and buy, well, not Mac Jones because he's injured this week, but buy Trevor Lawrence or buy.
Cage, now they're moving to basketball.
Well, that'll be next. It'll be, but football. Stay with me for a second. If you could pull this one up, there's a John Elway basket, a rookie basket. that caught my eye this week also because it had sort of an exit. This is one that IPO'd at $10 a share, 2,975. So 29,750 for two PSA 10s. All right. It is down this week from 625 a share to 380 a share. Right. So you're talking about 380 per share. What's the market cap on this? I don't want to do the math all screwy.
11.3.
Right? So 11.3 for two of them. Right. 11.3 for two PSA 10s. This is not
178 PSA 10s, guys.
What's the look? Check out the card ladder stuff on the bottom right there. What are the last comps on this?
September 28th.
6 and change, right?
Yeah, 6.5.
Yeah. So I mean, that's this week. So now you have this one that fell off because I don't know if somebody's looking for liquidity. But think about that. It went down from 625 a share to 380 a share. Take a look at that chart. That's a huge liquidity event. If somebody wasn't trading in this, it was sitting at 625 for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 weeks in a row until this past week it had a drop here. Look at that. It's the flattest chart in the world. This is one of those things where the chart comes, I take a look at and say, okay, wow, somebody just exited this item. And now if you're able to get in, we'll see what the bid and asks are on Monday, but if you're able to get in at this price, it's now below comps. So that's a difference, right? You can look at pricing on this. You can look at what they sell for. As a matter of fact, what's today is October 2nd. The last sale on this was September 28th. We're talking about days ago.
Different days, two different sales, 6,200, 6,500.
So both would be more if you doubled than the market cap, which is under 12 here. That would be 12, 4, and 13 for a basket of two. So with that, drop.
You've lived through this. So 1930s, 1940s, 50s, pre-war. Vintage. But what do you think, and what has to happen for us to think that 1980s is vintage?
I mean, people already do. I saw a blowout thing that said anything before 1996 is vintage.
Dude, can I tell you something funny? My search term in PWCC Weekly is 1996 on.
Yeah. So,
I don't know what, maybe Topps Chrome kind of feels a little bit more modern.
Maybe shiny, yeah.
Yeah, because there's the finest, but there's not a lot from that. So that's interesting. 1996.
Honestly, people who collected 96, I almost consider them in like a separate collecting genre. Like I'm an 80s collector with 92 at the border line of a 92, 93, a little bit of finest coming in, that kind of stuff. And then you have the people who left. And then you have the next, swing, which is that 96 to 03 kind of collection. So, yeah, I mean, it's an interesting split there of what is vintage. And I love the way you phrase that. Cage, you've been through this. The 1930s, 1940s. Yeah.
You hit me with the stoner with the big Blue Devil beard.
Yeah,
hey,
okay.
who's in the other room? What's he saying?
1930s.
I mean, if I could hit you with the old man, I think that's okay.
I lived through it. Yeah, 100 years ago. I'll take it. No problem. I mean, I am getting a little gray here, so you could say.
Hey, Cage, you probably know this. You lived through it.
You lived through the 30s and the 40s. Okay, so you guys, you're probably listening to and talk about Mike Tyson and then John Elway, and you say, all right, Andrew's talking about like vintage. Andrew's talking about all these cards. Is there anything that has come down recently on the platform that some would consider a safe haven? Well, when we think about baseball cards, the one name that comes up as a safe play, Mickey Mantle, right? Do me a favor if you can while you're doing this. The 68 Topps basket, 2 PSA 9s. This is a cool play on him. High grade mantles. We've talked about this a million times that people buy these. They build verticals. They put together a whole set of every year that he played. It's a cool looking card. It's two of them. IPO'd at $10 per share, $3,635. So it IPO'd at $36,000 for the two of them.
Age, which 56?
The 68 basket, 1968 basket. This week, it's basically been trading for the last 2 months in the fives, about half the IPO. This past week, it closed $550 last week and down to $360 this week. You see that chart with a little bit of a drop off on this. So at $360, we're talking about now it being a third of its IPO price, approximately. And you get two PSA 9s, $36.35. This is a $13,000 valuation, $6,500 per card. Are there any card ladder sales on these?
Let me scroll down. Last one, June 1st, $10,300.
So $10,000 for one. This is $13,000 valuation for a pair of them now.
So something I've been thinking a little bit about, and I'm really glad you touched on this. This is one of those, how when you trade stocks, sometimes you get an alert when a stock moves too much.
Yep.
The mantle, I would think of all of these mantles second year to like the end of his career as sort of like an ETF, a mutual fund, but they're separate on Collectable. So anytime one moves beyond the 20-30% threshold, you could come in and just be the support. And I think long term, that will play off incredibly well.
I mean, I think you are probably correct. Can you do me a favor? Because we've talked about fringes and, maybe looking at the Tyson stuff and you're able to get out of it, exit liquidity. We've talked about tennis. Can you pull up, just so we can take a look at the chart together?
Serena.
I want to know yes. You tell me what you think about this one. The Serena
I
Net
think
Pro.
Alcaraz is significantly better than Serena. That's just pretty ridiculous comparison. He's
Besides
won
that,
a huge U.S. Open. She's only won like 15 of them, so can't even compare.
Talk to me about what happened here.
Well, sometimes markets are irrational, Cage. And what I mean by that is she just retired, right? So like all the hype was the last 4 months, her playing in the US Open. Is this her last tournament? The writing's sort of on the wall. After someone's retired, the collector or the investor has to think, I have to hold this for a long period of time till I probably see another cycle of hers come through and give me an exit point. You know what I mean? Like once you...
This to me smacks of, there are not a lot of these out there. People are grading them. There's still a bunch coming back. People are trying to capitalize, and it's to buy the rumor, sell the news type of stuff. All of a sudden, everybody thought they were going to buy Serena because she was retiring and sell it for more money than they bought it for. But what wound up happening was everybody was thinking the same thing, and a glut of these came out, and there was way too much supply. And the only people who were buying them previously for the run-up were the people who were looking to just sell them. They weren't people who were looking to hold them. And this is our top decliner of the week, down almost 63%, trading at $88.75 for a pair, down significantly from the IPO, down significantly from last week. But what's funny about this, I don't want to say funny, but what's noteworthy about this is the PWCC auction 3 weeks ago, the most recent comp, one of these sold for $1,350. So even the $88.75 for the pair, which is $4,400, it is still very high compared to the last comp. So I would expect further declines on this one. It's probably significant declines on this one. So if you're in this, I would take a strong look at your position on this. And if it's something you really want to hold for a long term, I would expect some more downside risk on this just based on that comp.
I want to shift you guys' attention to the Ty Cobb E9810. Cage, talk to me about this card, the red border PSA 10.
Yeah, why do you like this?
So this is where I would want my money in a panic period. There's 3 of these in the world, pre-war card. It's down quite a bit, and it's down again recently with a pretty significant drop of 15% for a pre-war card with 3. With a pop 3. What's the deal? Is this the Black Swamp find?
Hey, look at you, man. So it's one of the rarer cards. It's actually anonymous. I don't even know who manufactured this. I don't know if anybody knows who manufactured it, but it's a 30 card E98 set. Just all Hall of Famers, basically, right? A 30 card set, 17 Hall of Famers in this set. One of my favorite sets because it's just beautiful. Great color on it. Different background colors, red, blue, orange, green. You got the checklist printed in brown ink on the reverse of each piece. You're pointing out the Cobb. There's Connie Mack, Christy Matheson, Honus Wagner, Cy Young, Frank Chance, Johnny Evers, Joe Tinker. There's just a myriad of Hall of Famers on this. For the longest
drop, 21% from the top.
We've talked about this, right?
To 214. Go on. I apologize, Cage.
No, you're 100% right. Listen, the Black Swamp find in 2012 was the one that was, this was really rare. It's still rare. But obviously that was a huge supply that was dumped in. In that one, almost all the cards that were found were graded by PSAs equal to or standing alone the finest copies in existence, all but 3. So not only was it a find of supply, it was a find of high-end supply.
So guys, this is a PWCCE top 15%. This is a 112-year-old card. If you look at this card, it's insane. The red pops. It's perfectly centered. The corners are sharp. This is when they say art, I think this has to fall into that category of art.
You love it, huh? What's the grade on this one on Collectable?
It's a 10. It's the nicest copy in the world.
It's a 10. It's a 10.
It's a freshly graded 10 too.
I'm pretty sure even the Black Swamp find only had a 9, I think. So yeah, I mean, listen, Ty Cobb. I show you a Ty Cobb card, and you tell me nobody cares about Ty Cobb. Cage.
Yeah, they do not care about the Ty Cobb card. They care about their money, and they're sick of losing it on Mac Jones.
I mean, just so that we know, even with the Black Swamp find, there were the Ty Cobb Reds, still only 24 of them, graded, which is pretty nuts. Maybe some with, plus maybe 27 of them total, actually. So, yeah, I mean, obviously very rare card, but not exactly cheap, right? Not exactly cheap. So
I mean, it's not exactly expensive compared to Ruth.
that's true. It's true. And when you compare it to, a Wagner T206, it's definitely not.
T-Law and Trevor Lawrence and T-Law is Trevor Lawrence, but quarterbacks for go for $200K now.
T-Law. I mean, listen, you're 100% right. I think that is definitely a viable, place as long as you're not looking for. Ty Cobb's not playing this week. He's not winning a championship. He's not going to go out there and have anything on court, on field, to do anything. Unlike Albert Pujols, who hit his 702nd home run today. Unlike Mike Trout, who just hit another one today. 3 for 3 last time I checked. He's got 39 home runs, even though he missed a bunch of games this season.
Well, that's because you haven't jinxed them.
Who's still at 61.
Wait till you talk about Trout and Pujols.
Listen, that I talk about Trout Pujols every time too. Here's the thing that I don't love about the Judge scenario. He's out there playing to try to chase the home runs, and he winds up swinging a lot because he's trying to hit that 62nd home run. So today he was 0 for 3 with 3 Ks, whereas Luis Arraez from Minnesota, who's like a slap hitter, just sat out, defending his batting average by not playing.
Is that really what he did?
Yeah, he had 2 hits yesterday, the day before he sat out. So he's just sitting there watching. He might back into a batting title while Judge is, taking his hacks to try to get the 62nd.
I think we could all agree that's pretty corny.
Yeah, it's definitely worth noting, though.
Let's
it's definitely
go play,
corny.
brother.
So listen, 2 of the 3, actually all 3 of the top risers were cards that we talked about last week. You remember at the end where I said, hey, there's something that looks like it's low, and I'd be remiss if I didn't point it out because the same thing happened last week. You and I talked about it off camera, and it was the LeBron 04 Exquisite Emblems of Endorsement BGS 8. That card was up 54% this week. The number 2 increase. We do not own that. We did not purchase it. It was not something that we mentioned and bought. We try not to do that. You guys know what we've bought. I have not changed the allocation in our portfolio, not since day one. So I'm trying to, buy Clemente and Hank Aaron and Tom Brady and hold them rather than try to day trade with them because I think that, this is what the platform is better for. I got some goats in there. The only item that was up more than that LeBron James was the number 1 decliner from last week. And you said this is going to happen. You talked about soccer coming up. Last week it was down 58%. We said we wouldn't be surprised if this week it was the number 1 up. But what does surprise me is how much it was up. It was up 207%. Cristiano Ronaldo, 02 Panini Portugal sticker rookie PSA 10. Number 1 decliner last week, number 1 increase. But even with that increase, it's still lower than the last comp, which was a February sale at $80,000 in golden. So
I saw a post, Cage. It said, when is the right time to sell soccer? And to me, it showed a naivety of understanding of the soccer market, actually. Because there hasn't been a run-up to the World Cup. The run-up to the World Cup is a different game, right? Because we play this leading up to football, sell football. Leading up to basketball, sell basketball. But the World Cup is every 4 years. And it also doesn't have the predictability of knowing who's going to be the potential star, right? In football, it's easy. It's one of these 10 quarterbacks. Easy. In basketball, it's one of these 10 point guards. In soccer, I don't think you're going to see a run-up until you see performance.
Right.
I think
you don't know who the Pogba is going to be until it happens.
You really don't. And that's what makes soccer exciting and challenging to invest in, right? It is a lot more maybe prospect-ish, like baseball, when there's a call-up, when there's someone who comes out of the blue and scores some goals, versus the buy the hype, sell the news thing. That's at least how I view this World Cup. I think, do your research, make your plays, and then when they perform, sell them. I don't think there's going to be as much of a run-up as we think.
I think you're probably right. I mean, for the World Cup, I'm investing in Erling Haaland because I think he's just going to go all out and set records in the World Cup.
I look pretty smart with my Erling Haaland pick, don't I?
I mean, it depends. You look smart to people who watch soccer. So yes, the 3 people who listen to our show who actually watch soccer, they all think you're smart. And 3 is better than 0.
Cage, and 1,000 true fans.
That's true.
I'll start with 3.
Listen, your favorite card. Remember in the beginning of the show when we started doing the collectible show and you were dating the yoga instructor?
Yes.
And so your favorite card was the Eddie Plank? Why don't you tell folks about the Eddie Plank card?
I don't know anything about that Eddie Plank. He told everybody. He's such a sweet corporal.
Eddie Plank.
I'd give him a 4.
Well, you said last week, you wouldn't be surprised. This thing is a number 3 decliner. Maybe it'll be the number 3 increase this week. And wouldn't you know it, the number 3 gainer this week was the number 3 decliner last week. Down last week, 36%. Up this week, 44. The Eddie Plank 06 T206 Sweet Capital PSA 4. This is another one of those rarities. This was, one of those was thought as, one of the big 3 cards when I was a kid. This was mentioned at the same time as
one of the big 3 cards when you were a kid.
Yep.
We're not. Really?
Honus Wagner, for pre-war, it was Honus Wagner, it was this, and the 1933 Napoleon Lajoie card. Those were the big 3 cards. Not like Babe Ruth, Baltimore. No one even knew those cards existed. They were just random rare cards. These were the cards that people told stories about. These,
wow.
The T206s that were printed as short prints. When you got that pricing magazine, the 2 most expensive cards in the T206 set were the Plank and the Honus Wagner. Of course, more research has been done about the backs of the cards, the rarities of the backs of the cards. Ty Cobb with a Ty Cobb back is now considered pretty rare. The Napoleon Lajoie 1933 Gaudy card, it doesn't have the appeal to the younger folks that it does, but I've talked about that as one of the big 3. And the reason for it, if you remember, was they specifically left the card out of the set and they didn't make that card so that people who were buying the bubble gum to put the complete set together couldn't complete the set, so they kept buying more gum. And it was a dedicated fan base who were trying to collect sets who wrote to the company and said, hey, you didn't put this card in. I think the card's number 106, maybe.
So what you're saying is there's been hanky-pankies.
They mailed it out to them. They mailed them the cards. People, the only way to get that card, it was actually made in 34 the next year. And the only way to complete the set and get that card was it was mailed. And the condition's not so great on it because, 1, it was put in the mail, but 2, it wasn't put in the mail like, Panini with an encased thing and the whole deal. It was like, paper clipped to a letter. Here you go. Here's your card, So, that anyway.
Hanky and redemptions began in 1933.
These were the cards of stories. These were the, that was the Billy Ripken. These are the stories of the cards that, they get told. Top 3 decliners. We talked about the Serena Williams already. This one surprises me a little bit. I guess it shouldn't because it was the number 2 gainer last week. So if the number 3 loser last week is the number 3 gainer this week, the number 2 gainer last week is the number 2 decliner this week. That is the Jordan Magic LeBron 05 SP Triple Authentic Signature BGS 95. Was up 63% last week, down 53% this week. It's just odd. Those are not cards that are transacting in great volume with these autographs of these guys. I guess, this is one of those things where we're talking about the bid and ask, and it doesn't have to be a lot of shares transacting to make it move and make it look like it's that, 50 or 60% jump. The last decliner is the 96 Skybox EX 2000 basketball unopened box basket with 3 boxes in it, down 50%. Leads us to your favorite card, the 86 Fleer Jordan PSA 10. Want to talk about that? I mean, you started already. You talked about how people come in and defend it. It has a pricing history and all that fun stuff. What are your thoughts on that?
It's the Apple stock. It's the Apple stock of the hobby.
I will say this: Golden Auctions extended their auction that was supposed to end this week. They extended it a week because of I think they're going to put some additional items in and do some some charity stuff for Hurricane Ian. So they extended it a week, and the Jordan PSA 10 that's in that auction is, I believe, already at 150 plus buyer's premium. So that's at 180 already with the buyer's premium, which is exactly what the one on Collectable is trading at. We've talked about this. It's down 14% on Collectable at 180, which is really in line with the last couple of sales, 175, 185. Now this golden one here. I
take back my previous comment. It's actually the S&P 500.
Okay.
If you want to invest in the market as a whole, and there's no mutual fund. I'd say this is a play. This is how long term, if you think the market's going to go, how they say up and to the right, you get into this card, and in 10 years, I think you're going to do well. I wouldn't react too much to the price fluctuations. They're more driven by how much supply hits the market at a time.
Mm-hmm.
There's always significant demand for this card. It's always.
So, two more cards to talk about. I'd love to get your take on them. Number one is the 52 Mantle at Heritage a couple days ago. A PSA 6 sold for $300,000. I think that ended either Thursday or Friday night. I will say it was a nice looking copy. Right to left centering, great registration. Top to bottom was a little off, the top to bottom, but generally speaking, it had very good eye appeal. But if you're a holder of the PSA 7 on Collectable, which is currently trading at $321, that sale of a PSA 6 right in the wheelhouse of what your 7 is trading at, should make you feel a little more comfortable about holding that 7 if 6s are going to sell, that close to what your 7's market cap is presently.
For sure.
But remember, that card is one where the eye appeal really does make a huge, huge difference, because we did see a PSA 5 recently sell for $134,000. There's a big difference between 5, 6s, and 7s.
We saw 1.5 sell for with a pinhole. This is a beautiful copy of the pinhole. Sell for $60. That was as much as like a PSA 3 or 4.
Yeah,
that card is eye appeal to a T.
Yep, it's a very interesting, thing to watch. But generally speaking, headlines: a 6 sold for $300, so the 7 at $321 is not one I would think has much of a downside risk to it. The last one to talk about. It's a
card that if I was a grader, I'd struggle grading. I think it's a very hard card to grade.
Well, because eye appeal has come into the equation, but your grading is not really on eye appeal. Your grading is supposed to be on the technical restrictions of the grade. So,
I know, but you have to weight them. Like that's so hard to know. How do you weight something? How do you weight a pinhole versus something that's completely off center, which is perfectly centered with destroyed corners, with a perfect corners, but like the blue sky having fading.
So what you technically graded at versus what you pay for it is a very different thing, right? Which is why you see a 1 sell for more than a 3, because a 1 had to be given because of the pinhole, because that's what their grades would say it is. Whereas the card looks better than some of the off-centered, maybe creased 2s, 3s, or whatever it is out there. So, I love it. Last one. You think that this team is going to struggle out of the gate, but as a player, their star may be in the short conversation for MVP. The top 3, top 5 maybe. Luka. There is a Luka Blue Prism PSA 10 on Collectable that has just done nothing but come down recently. It's trading slightly above 23,000, which is right around the last comp. So I'm not calling it out as a bargain on the platform, but is it one to look at because it is obviously numbered to 199. There is a true scarcity or rarity to it because it's numbered, although there are a myriad of other parallels that you can talk about as, whether or not it's really
I'd still be shorting the Luka market. There's too many cards. He's not that accomplished. We know what he brings to the table. We are Luka Nation. I think Luka's fantastic, but his market is so overinflated what he's ever accomplished in the NBA. It's priced in like 3 MVPs, 14 championships. This is a card out of 199. I don't know. It doesn't make much sense. I would short the whole market. I would not dabble in this card, and I definitely wouldn't dabble in it on Collectable. I would just buy a low grade blue if you really want it. I'd buy an 8. I'd buy a 9.
There you go. What if he, you think there's any chance for this to move if he comes out and, he's averaging 35, 12, and 12 and, starts going nuts? I mean, only Embiid can put those numbers out there.
Well, Embiid, dude, this blue is priced like 20x what Jordan Poole.
I love where your head is. You're contrarian, you're bargain player, you're looking at other younger players and also older players who have had a little bit of a run. Look at Embiid. Like, what would his blue sell for? A fraction of this.
Like $1,000. $1,500.
So I like where your head is. It also is
$20,000.
a safer place to be with your wallet and your money when when economic times of uncertainty. We don't want to talk about that. So I'll spend 2 seconds. Not a lot of activity going on. The exclusive in-app early access, the Carlton Fisk Waves at Fair Home Run Bowl is still there, and the IPO open shares remaining 72% of the Michael Jordan 85 Air Jordan 1 dead stock player sample with the box at a market cap of 126. Let me ask you something. You talked about uncertainty a little bit with with politics and the like. Anything else, just overarching, macroeconomic picture you like to bring in when you talk about this stuff? Would you be, staying away from this stuff? Would you be, your uncertainty lead you towards, baseball vintage or that play you were talking about, like that Ty Cobb? Is that, like a reshuffling you're doing with your own stuff? Are you moving away from ultra modern? What are you doing in your own collection that maybe, the folks can learn something from?
So you ever see Beautiful Mind?
Yeah.
A concept, how like they're at the bar and like individually those girls aren't so pretty, but together they are beautiful. You remember this?
No.
You remember this scene? Like they do this in How I Met Your Mother too. Like separately, like it's a group theory. I don't know what the
groupthink. I like groupthink.
It's not groupthink. It's together. Something looks better. So I'm actually thinking of building out a collection of like.
So what about like a lion thinks that the wildebeest herd looks better than just one random wildebeest? This way he can go and hunt a whole bunch of them. Doesn't have to catch them all. He just has to catch one. Is that good? No. Is that what you mean? No.
You guys know the scene. I thought you watch movies.
I do, but sometimes you get a Beautiful Mind and the Matt Damon one confused.
Yeah.
Goodwill Hunting. You get Goodwill Hunting and Beautiful Mind confused sometimes. I don't know which one it is.
Is it Goodwill Hunting?
There's a scene in a bar, that one too, but I don't know what you mean. See, that's what I mean.
They do it Sometimes Your Mother, and then like
I never saw that.
Well, like look individually, those girls are hideous, but together.
Oh God, you got.
This is from How I Met Your Mother.
Okay, but
what I'm doing is there's a lot of one of
with you.
No, dude, this is from How I Met Your Mother. What are you talking about? I'm building out a one-of-one collection, right? Because individually, you're like, there's so many one-of-ones out there, right? They're hitting the market. There's like a clearly Donruss one-of-one. There's a Curry one-of. There's just
there's lots of one-of-ones. Yes.
And individually, it's like, that's another one-of-one bites the dust. But I'm like, I'm gonna start scooping some of these one-of-ones as I'm going to shows. I'm gonna have a little table of one-of-ones, and I could dictate the price. I could creatively price them to the max.
The creative pricing, which you can't do on the collectible platform, can you? There's bids, there's asks, there's a price that someone's willing to buy it for, a price that someone's willing to pay it for. You can't get creative. You can't go and set a higher ask than someone else and put a little narrative in it and say, you should buy my shares of this because my shares are cooler. My shares are one-of-one shares. My shares have better numbers. You can't do that on this platform. So I like that you go to creative pricing because this is not the place for it. It is the exact opposite of creative pricing in the secondary market, at least. So I like it. I don't know anything about what the hell you're talking about with the groups, but somebody will message me and explain.
I think they'll understand. I think some of them have seen the episode of How I Met Your Mother too.
Listen, guys, let us know what you think about this. This episode will give you kind of an update of where we stand. We're watching that Brady coming into this week and a bunch of these other items as well. It's an interesting time out there, and I'm curious to see, like you said, as we head into election season, a couple weeks away. Whether or not, however that goes, whether there's a little more certainty in the market and the overall, markets kind of rebound a little bit, and what that does to, to cards as well. Plus, basketball's coming. Excited about that. Take care, everybody.
Thank you all for listening to another episode of Lucas, Tigers, and Bronzo My. I wanted to tell you about a new service that we have starting as of today, and I'm really, really excited to bring it to you guys. So, as a part of our partnership with SGC, we got 50 free submissions every single month, and many of you have taken advantage of that. And it's amazing that we could have the opportunity to 650 episodes, 675 episodes in, to go ahead and give back to our community. As people were sending those cards in, they asked, can we send 5, 10, 20 more cards to you guys? We'll pay for it, but we wanted them graded with SGC. You guys know SGC is turning cards around in 13 to 14 business days, have incredible customer service, and their secondary market values are going up day after day after day. And that's exciting for the hobby and exciting for the grading landscape. So we didn't want to just rush into it. We wanted to do it right. And what we did was I relocated here to Boca Raton, Florida. I opened up a P.O. box maybe 5 minutes away from SGC, and I will be hand delivering and hand picking up the cards. So you don't have to worry about anyone else touching your cards. It will be me, and I will update you every step of the way. So here's how it's going to work. I'm going to personally pick up the cards from a P.O. box, prep them, new card saver, new penny sleeve, and deliver them to SGC every single Tuesday. Why Tuesday? Well, it lets the stragglers over the weekend come back through on Monday and gives me a day to prep, and it basically gives SGC the entire week to work on grading those cards. Once your cards pop, only then at the end of the process will you be paying for the service. It's $25 per card, simple as that, and the turnaround times have never been faster. We're hearing right now 13, 14, less than 20 business days. So there it is, 9170 Glades Road, number 135 is the P.O. Box in Boca Raton, Florida, 33434. 9170 Glades Road, number 135, Boca Raton, Florida, 33434. Of course, you could shoot me an email or shoot me a text anytime, and I'm always available. Many of you already have my email. It's iamandrewgoldberg@gmail.com, or my cell phone number, 215-519-9154. Reach out with any questions. I could walk you through the process. I've hopped on the call with quite a few of you, and I'm happy to do that. Love you, Luca Nation.